Attention passionate Green Bay Packers fans. Latest news, something big is happening in the NFC North and it could change the game. We're talking about a direct impact on Green Bay Packers' path to another Super Bowl run, a power shift that could leave a division rival stumbling for years. We're bringing this to you firsthand. But before that, if you're a true Green Bay Packers fan, subscribe to the channel to strengthen this passion even more. Show that you're also part of this family. Let's help each other reach 1,000 subscribers. Share with your friends and Green Bay Packers fans. Let's get to the news now, folks. You've probably heard the buzz around the NFL lately, and for us Packers fans, the landscape is more intriguing than ever. The offseason is always full of speculation, potential trades, signings, and strategic moves. But this time, one particular story is standing out: Tyreek Hill. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Why is a player like Tyreek Hill even being discussed in the context of the Packers? Well, let me explain why this is such a fascinating topic, even if it seems unlikely at first glance. To understand the situation, you have to look at the broader picture. The Green Bay Packers have been quite active in the offseason, especially when it comes to bolstering their receiving core. They did make some moves, although not as many as some fans hoped for. The only signing that stands out in free agency is Mecole Hardman, a dynamic wide receiver and return specialist, who signed a one-year deal worth $1.5 million. It's a modest move, but it shows the Packers are still looking to add speed and explosiveness to their offense. But the real question is, why didn't they pursue bigger names like DK Metcalf or Brandon Ayuk? Both of those options were available, and many analysts believed they could have been perfect fits for Green Bay's system. Yet the Packers held back, and that's led many to wonder what their true plans are heading into the season. Could they be saving cap space? Could they be waiting for the right opportunity? Or perhaps they're just being selective, knowing that big splashes aren't always the answer to their offensive needs. Now, here's where things get even more interesting. Rumors started swirling that the Packers might consider trading for a veteran receiver, and naturally, the names of Ayuk and Metcalf came up as the most logical targets. But as I mentioned earlier, the conversation about Tyreek Hill has also entered the chat. And folks, I have to be honest with you, while Hill's name might make sense for many teams, it doesn't really fit the Packers' profile or their typical approach to roster building. Let's take a step back and analyze why. Tyreek Hill, currently in his second contract with the Dolphins, signed a massive deal a few years ago. A 4-year, $120 million contract when he left Kansas City, then a 3-year, $90 million extension last year. That's a huge commitment for any team, and it certainly changes the calculus of a potential trade. Hill's cap hit in 2025 is scheduled at around $65 million, and in 2024, he's set to earn a whopping $36 million. That's a significant financial investment, especially for a team like the Packers, who have historically been cautious about long-term cap commitments, particularly for aging stars. What makes the situation even more complicated is the fact that, despite his incredible production, Hill is already 31 years old. That's not ancient in NFL terms, but it's definitely on the older side for a receiver with his style, reliant on speed, explosiveness, and agility. Over the last couple of seasons, we've seen signs of decline in Hill's game, which is natural at this stage of his career. Last season, he finished with 81 catches for 959 yards and 6 touchdowns, numbers still impressive but down from his peak years when he surpassed 700 receiving yards twice in Miami. And if we look deeper into his stats, the decline becomes even more apparent. His yards per route run, or YRR, in 2024 dropped to 1.75 from previous seasons, where he was well above 3.0, indicating a decrease in efficiency and explosiveness. His passer rating when targeted also dipped below 100 for the first time in his NFL career, 97. One showing that defenses are starting to find ways to contain him better. Plus, he committed a career-high 7 penalties last season, which isn't ideal when you're trying to keep up your elite status. So, why does all this matter? Well, the Packers would only consider such a move if the Dolphins were willing to trade Hill for a significantly reduced draft pick, basically just to get rid of his hefty contract. And even then, it's questionable whether Green Bay would pull the trigger, because paying nearly $30 million for a one-year rental doesn't align with their typical roster-building philosophy. Brian Gutekunst, the Packers GM, has been clear in the past. Trading a high draft pick for a veteran is a calculated risk, and it's only worth it if that player can truly change the game in a positive way. Now in his prime, Hill certainly would fit that description, a game changer, a player capable of transforming an offense overnight. But right now, the evidence suggests that Hill is approaching the tail end of his peak. His production has declined, and his age makes it unlikely that he'll replicate his best seasons in the coming years. For Green Bay, investing big money in a receiver who might only give them one or two more solid seasons is exactly a smart move, especially when they're trying to build a sustainable, competitive roster. And it's not just about the numbers. When you dig into his underlying stats, the signs of regression are pretty clear. His yards per route run have fallen below 2.0 for the first time in his career, and his overall efficiency metrics don't look as sharp as they once did. His target-specific passer rating is also dipping, and penalties are creeping up. These are all small signs that, while he's still talented, Hill's best days might be behind him. So let's talk about what this means for the Packers. They're in a tricky spot. They want a top-tier receiver, someone who can stretch the field and create mismatches. A player like DK Metcalf or Brandon Ayuk makes more sense because they're younger, still ascending, and come with less baggage, financially and performance-wise. But if those options aren't available or too expensive, the Packers might consider other avenues, whether through the draft or in free agency, rather than trying to chase a veteran like Hill, who could be a risky investment at this stage of his career. But here's the thing, if the Dolphins suddenly decided to unload Hill for a much lower draft pick, motivated perhaps by cap concerns or a desire to rebuild, then maybe the Packers would entertain it. Still, even in that unlikely scenario, the price would have to be right, and Green Bay would need to weigh whether it's worth the risk of paying for past production. At the end of the day, the Packers are more likely to focus on younger, ascending talent or look to develop their existing players rather than chasing a veteran who's already shown signs of decline. It's a smart approach, building for the future, not just patching holes for one season. They've been strategic so far, and I expect that to continue. And I know a lot of you are eager to see how this all unfolds, especially with the NFL draft around the corner and free agency heating up. The Packers have shown they're willing to be patient and calculated, and that's what makes their offseason so intriguing. They're not just making splash moves for the sake of it. They're looking for players who fit their system, their culture, and their long-term vision. So, as we keep an eye on everything happening in the NFL, especially in the NFC North, it's clear that the Packers are in an interesting position. They might not be making the biggest headlines right now, but don't be surprised if they pull off a move later in the offseason that could shake up the division. Whether it's through the draft, a smart trade, or developing their existing roster, Green Bay remains a team to watch. And now, Green Bay Packers fans, I want to hear from you. What's your take on all this? Do you think the Packers should go all in for a veteran receiver like Hill despite the risks? Or do you believe they're better off building from within and drafting the next wave of stars? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your opinion matters so much to us and to the Green Bay Packers. And don't forget, I'll be back soon with more updates, so stay tuned for the latest Green Bay Packers news. We're in this journey together, and I can't wait to see what the upcoming season holds for our beloved Packers. Thanks for sticking with me through this deep dive, and remember, whether it's a big trade, a draft pick, or just some strategic roster moves, the Green Bay Packers are always aiming high. Let's keep that passion alive, keep supporting our team, and stay excited for what's coming next. Go Pack Go!